Hello again, my AP Psych students. So today we're talking about a subject that I admittedly am probably the least qualified person in the world to talk about, and that is attraction. So we've got a special treat for you. I've brought in reinforcements for you, so come on in.
Stand over here.
Now, my wife's going to stand over here, and she is much more qualified to tell us about attraction. So we're going to go through, here's the big thing, there are three key components to attraction. What attracts us to somebody else? So we're going to run through them. There are a couple videos we're going to stop and pause along the way, and you're going to watch those. But the three components to attraction. The first one, you can't be attracted to somebody unless you see them and are around them. If you've never met them, it's impossible to be attracted to them. So the first one is proximity, geographical nearness. So think about, this doesn't just involve romantic relationships, it could be any friendship. Think about your friends. Almost invariably, most of your friends are probably your friends more than anything else because of what we call geographical convenience. They were your neighbors, or they were your classmates, or they were someone maybe at church that you went to that it was geographically convenient for you to be around. Rarely do we go out of our way, especially when we're young, because we don't have that capacity, because we don't drive, to go out of our way to find friends. It's usually the people that are near us. Now, a big part of this is what we've already learned. Remember the mere exposure effect. Mere exposure effect says the more often you are presented with the stimuli, the more comforting it becomes, and the more you tend to like it, and that is true of friendships as well. I would imagine that there are people that you probably are friends with now that you may not have been friends with when you first met. Okay, in fact, you may not have even liked each other the first time you met. But the more you spend time around each other, you get kind of used to each other, there's a comfort there, and you become friends because of it. So basically, familiarity breeds fondness. So, thinking back to our situation, we were in college, I was a senior, this beautiful woman was a junior, and we ended up in biology lab together. I think it's fair to say it wasn't love at first sight. She's from New Jersey. At that time, I despised people from New Jersey. Generally, I still do, with one specific exception. But
and I could tell that his mom still bought his clothes, so there was that.
I'm not a clothes buyer, so that's fair to say. Yes, I agree with that. But we didn't meet that first time and think, oh my gosh, this must be the one, right? But we did lab after lab together. We made each other laugh. For some classes, I've told you the story of me asking out another girl to the Cubs game and then all that kind of stuff. And so I know we still disagree on some of the details, so we're not going to go into that. But you had all these things that happened that kind of just gave us the opportunity to be together, and there ended up being a comfort and a familiarity and a respect that I think grew out of that. And so I ended up asking her out, best decision I ever made. So proximity, got to be close to someone first and foremost. Secondly, now I know this sounds shallow, but study after study after study has shown that our first impression, the thing that impacts us most is not their temperament, their attitudes, their beliefs, their overall demeanor, things like that. The thing that impacts us most, physical attractiveness. Okay, so bottom line is, you're not going to like someone romantically if you're not somewhat physically attracted to them. And so more than anything else, that's the first thing that we see. And in fact, they find that within a matter of seconds, we've already made our judgment as to whether or not we could like this person or not. So, interestingly, this next point is kind of important. When someone is physically attractive, there's this automatic assumption that we make that they have desirable personality characteristics. In other words, they must be a good person, they must be nice, they must be kind, they must be whatever else, just because they're physically attractive. This is kind of built in us. And so, obviously for me, this was a no-brainer. I was looking across the table at this girl, so physical attractiveness was not a problem for me. She was a swimmer, she was in good shape, she had a lot of things going for her. In fact, I thought she was out of my league I didn't even consider her up front. Not that I didn't think she was attractive, I just thought she was out of my league. So to this day, I'm not quite sure I know what she found physically attractive in me. I know it wasn't my clothes, as she obviously mentioned, because my mom was buying my clothes. I did have a clothing chart, by the way, so there was a routine there. But anyway.
You don't know what physically attracts you to someone, but the point where you find when they have desirable personality characteristics. So, Mr. Murs, I don't call him that, but I just found him really funny all of a sudden and wanted to be around him, and just his personality was very contagious for me. And even to the point where if he wasn't in class, if I knew he wasn't going to go, I wouldn't go to class. So I don't think you can pinpoint, I don't think anybody can say, oh, his eyes or his ears, or I don't know. I mean, what do people say? You just find the whole person attractive, and when you find those physical characteristics attractive, then you start enjoying the personality characteristics.
Well, you did at one point say that I had small ears. I have no idea what that had to do with physical attractiveness, but at any rate,
little tiny lips too.
By the way, no student has ever said, I only come to school because Mr. Mers is there. So that's, again, that was a keeper, as it is. So interestingly, you're going to watch a couple videos here in a second on what makes attractive facial features. So the first thing has to do with symmetry and why we find symmetry attractive. And so at this point, there's a short video, about a 1.5 minute video, I want to say, from Brain Games, where they talk a little bit about facial symmetry. So go ahead and pause this video and I'll wait for you, watch that, and come right back. All right, well, hopefully you learned something about facial symmetry. Another thing, and this was talked about on Brain Games as well, it's a longer video so I didn't assign it, but something that's called the golden ratio. The golden ratio is the idea that we find it attractive when our faces are 1.5 times as tall as they are wide. And yeah, you're laughing because she knows I have a thin head. She said it before, so I'm not sure I fit that ratio, but there are other things, apparently my humor, which, by the way, as quickly as that humor struck her as funny, I think it's left, because you just don't find your spouse funny anymore. That's part of life, unless I get hurt for some reason. That's hilarious to her. Like if I hit my head, or am bleeding profusely, or get a serious disease, she thinks that's hilarious. But anyway, attractive facial features. Now, there's really a lot more to this that goes through all 5 of the senses. And what all 5 of the senses are doing, they're actually all working in tandem to create this physical attractiveness. And so again, there's another video, this should be the 3rd video in this quiz, below the last one. I'm going to have you pause this for a second, watch that video on the 5 senses, and I'll be back to you in just a moment. All right, so hopefully you learned what happened with the 5 senses. This is how we do it. I go live here, so I'm assuming they're pausing it for my benefit. All right, the last one is similarity. Now, you've heard the phrase opposites attract. Actually, a lot of studies show that's not true. In fact, it's only when you find commonality with someone, particularly when it comes to beliefs, values, opinions, attitudes, interests, things like that. Those are the things that end up drawing you closer to someone. Now, that being said, there is a sense that we have certain things that we do well and certain things we don't do so well, things that we could call our weaknesses. There is a sense that sometimes when we see other people do the things that we're not good at, and they do them very naturally and very effortlessly, we admire that in them and we respect that, and it kind of attracts us to them. So for example, for those of you that know me know that I'm not naturally a people person. I don't have a comfort around people. Now I know in my classroom you probably don't see that because my classroom's kind of my element, but outside of the classroom, again, I'm very self-conscious, and I'm always wondering, am I saying the right thing, doing the right thing, this and that, and so it's uncomfortable for me to be around people. This one over here, she loves people. She can just walk into any room, whether she knows people or not, and she is right at home, like she's been their best friend their whole life. And I so wish I had that. And I see her able to work a room, and I just admire it, and I enjoy it. I see her ability to be kind and genuinely compassionate for others. And it's not that I'm not those things, it just comes so naturally to her. And I wish I had those things. Unfortunately, I don't. And so I admire her for that. And it draws me to her because I see those things that I wish I had in myself, but unfortunately I don't. And I'm sure I've got some weird characteristics that she admires that she doesn't have. I don't know what they might be, but...
Well, you all know Mr. Mers is pretty organized and put together. And so we, because of that extrovertism in me, I have very little patience to do anything that's detail-oriented. Like cooking without burning something, or hanging something on the wall, finding a stud you're supposed to find a stud before you hang something on the wall.
Depends on what it is, but ideally.
Yeah, ideally. So I either overdo things or underdo things, and I don't have that attention to detail. And for a lot of things, that's important in life, right? So good thing I married this guy, because now we have dinner that's not burned, and we have pictures that are hung, and cars that are fixed, and
we go to
walls
Disney
that
with
don't
every
have
single,
holes in 'em,
we go to
and
Disney
we
with
talk
every
over
single
each
minute
other still.
planned.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, we gotta make sure.
So it doesn't always go as
He's
planned.
a little proud of that
But
one.
I am,
He
that was
did,
awesome, yeah.
You did.
Every
He
single
planned-
minute.
He planned to the minute where we needed to be, when we needed to get fast passes, where we were eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner, what time we needed to get up, what time we needed to get back.
That's how you do Disney. That's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, so.
We were on a
I
schedule.
did it right.
We were on a schedule.
But anyway, so generally speaking though, that being said, we obviously have very similar beliefs as far as our faith is concerned and the things that we value. And politically, she doesn't care, which is nice, so I can kind of believe whatever I want. And she's just either going to go with it and say, tell me who to vote for, and that works out good. So anyway. All right, and then lastly, just the difference between in the two types of romantic love, how passionate love morphs into what we call companionate love. So at first, and some of you may have experienced this, that intense desire to be with someone, that you just can't get enough of them, and they light your fire, and they do all these wonderful things for you. That's what we call passionate love, and it's actually a very chemical thing going on. When you have that person that is fueling that, you're actually getting dopamine, adrenaline, and testosterone all released at the same time, and it is giving you quite the high, the natural high, and you feel good. And so, of course, we call it sometimes floating on a cloud, that kind of feeling, and you want to be with that person. And I remember, what'd you call it, puppy love?
Puppy love.
Yeah, puppy love. And I remember those days when we just
Love
could
is
not
blind, 'cause
get enough of each
feel
other.
good.
Yeah, it's amazing. But as time goes on, that high doesn't last forever. And so eventually it morphs into, if it's lasting, what we call companionate love. And so it's more of a deep affectionate attachment. And so the chemicals change, and this is important. Instead of dopamine, adrenaline, and testosterone being released, and those are still released, but not to the same extent, it's replaced by oxytocin. Now what oxytocin does is give us feelings of trust, calmness, and bonding. And so again, not that I don't love this woman, because I am passionately in love with this woman, but that feeling of my world just revolves around every single thing she does, and I can't think about anything else, that obviously life has happened. And so, now we've got companionate love. I'm getting there. Don't worry, she's not listening to the story. So life has happened. Life has happened as far as careers are concerned. This one is going to be a PA, and she's going to school. We've got 3 kids. There are just a lot of responsibilities. But there's also this comfort that comes with knowing that she's there. And I feel it most when she's not. For example, there are some nights when she's been studying and she's been in the cadaver lab until midnight and 1 a.m., which is kind of creepy when I think about it, cutting into dead bodies. But she's not there, or if she's away visiting family or whatever else, and it's just me. There's just this feeling. I have trouble sleeping at night without her being next to me. It's not just that the bed is colder. There's just a comfort knowing that that person is there. And so that creates the bonding and the trust and the mutual affection. What they find is the longer people are married, usually there's actually an increase, in spite of what society might want to tell us and what's joked about in sitcoms and everything else, usually there's an increase in that affection for one another. And as you get older, and especially as the kids get out and you are able to devote more time to one another, that closeness even continues, which is a wonderful thing to look forward to. So, but those are the differences between passion and companion and how it morphs. But again, there's got to be some kind of common ground there, and that's where the similarity comes, right? If there's no common ground, then passionate love is going to move away, and there's going to be nothing left to base that companionate love on, right? So that's where the similarity comes into play. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I appreciate my beautiful wife helping me out and making this maybe my best one yet. So at any rate, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. And of course, I hope to see you guys sooner than later.
So the next time you're with your boyfriend or your girlfriend that you've been with for, I don't know, let's say maybe a year, maybe a year, that's probably pretty long. You can say when you're like hugging or like being close to one another, you just say, "Oh, you make me feel oxytocin."
Yeah, that's what every guy wants to hear. So
Try it. It'll be a good show.
give it a shot. All right, guys, we'll see you later.